Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today we will be going over Dev Diary number 127, which is going to cover bulk nationalization, which is going to be a huge quality of life update. We are going to soon have a kind of tutorial out where we talk about nationalization specifically, and nationalization being able to be targeted, this is going to improve. Your ability to do that is going to be a big deal in terms of being able to execute your plans accordingly. And we're also going to see some new details about company building ownership, which is going to be very exciting. I don't really know how it's going to play out so far, though. I think the changes are good, but they're overall going to weaken the power level of a company. But let's get into it. So we have, hello Victorians, wake up, grab a brush, and put on a little bit of makeup. We're going to be talking about bulk nationalization today, and that's kind of where the points at which we can, you know, keep doing it in chop suey-esque tone, and also notably this is perhaps the worst spelling of Happy Thursday I've ever seen, because it is song lyrics, semi-song lyrics for a song where they don't wish you a happy Thursday. But okay, let's continue on. Also, I will be bringing you more details on the next step of the evolution of the company's feature, ownership, and building levels. Let's get started, shall we? We shall. So we have bulk nationalization. Since the release of 1.7 update and the nationalization feature, the biggest wish in the form of a community and ourselves in regards to it was to have a tool that allows you to nationalize more buildings at once. If you've ever gone command economy, which first of all, don't, but if you've ever gone command economy, you notice that it is super hard to nationalize all buildings, or it is incredibly tedious because you have to do them one at a time. It's really not a lot of fun. It's the most unfun thing, and it's like really insult to injury because first you went command economy, which of course was bad, and then second, now you're having to click a whole bunch to nationalize everything, and it just feels really bad. So, and let you choose more concretely which levels you want to nationalize. This part is significant because you generally want to nationalize foreign buildings. This is part of a kind of bigger strategy because if you nationalize foreign buildings, it's generally cheaper than you constructing the buildings yourself in terms of the value you're gaining, which is on the dividend side. You're already effectively getting the value from the wages side of things, the value that is being paid out to your workers or workers in your nation. However, getting the ownership is going to be useful, and you don't want to nationalize your own buildings, and currently the way the system works is you just have to nationalize the buildings. Like, you can't pick and choose which ones you nationalize, and now you will be able to choose which ones you do. So this is going to be a really nice feature moving forward. In order to access this new tool, you'll have to go through the building registry, which you can find at the bottom of the buildings panel. You can see right here, building registry. In here, you will see a button that says nationalize filter buildings. And so the idea is you use the filters both in location, group, and ownership. So you just sort by owned by a foreign country, and then located within your country, and then you nationalize all the filtered buildings. As you may be able to tell from its name already, for assembling the list of buildings to be nationalized, the tool, we take into account all the filters you have set up with the building registry. So this is going to be a huge quality of life improvement, especially if you go command economy, which of course you shouldn't, but if you do, well, if you do, you wake up and then the nightmare really begins. But you can go it, I guess. So if you, for example, if you filter down to a list of buildings that are owned by other countries or pops in your other countries, are owned by other countries or pops in other countries. Okay, yeah, either nationally owned by the other country or owned by private, either manor houses or financial districts in other countries. Well, these are the only buildings that are considered when opening the national bulk nationalization window. So this, of course, is what you're going to want to do in terms of execution, and now there's a tool for doing it. Alternatively, you could have filtered the list for the buildings that are located in West Bengal that have good shortage that are currently not hiring. The more you filter, the more control you have over which buildings you want to nationalize, which, of course, is going to allow you to nationalize all the buildings that are producing automobiles, which are loud and outside. Now, let's see what happened when you press that button. Example, you see a list of all British-owned pop-owned ranches, furniture manufacturers, and steel mills that I have filtered for in the building registry and can nationalize in one go. So just taking a closer look at this, we're just nationalizing all this in one go. Now, if you're specifically on interventionism, which is generally not good as a laissez-faire, but there's reasons to want to do it, and you want to nationalize specifically arms industries and this type of thing, I think that this is definitely really reasonable because these levels, if they're currently privatized, they can actually downgrade in level, so maybe there's some reason to occasionally do it like this, and you just nationalize all the ammunition, arms industries, and cannons and this type of thing. But either way, really going to be a nice tool. You can see the list of all the affected buildings on the top of the main sliders in order to determine how many levels you'd like to nationalize. As you know from the existing tool, if other owner groups were present, there'd be a separate slider for them. Ooh, there's a slider. Wait, what? Oh, so we can choose how many levels we want to do if we can't afford all. I assume you just nationalize all most of the time, but okay. Additionally, to the left of it, we've added a shortcut to filter by a specific ownership type, allow you to only select manor house owned properties, for example, because who needs the landowners really? This is, maybe there's a strategy where you just buy and resell these. So when you buy, when you spend money to nationalize a building, you're not really like losing the money because a portion of that gets paid back out to the investment pool, or I think all of it gets paid to the investment pool. And some of it gets paid back to the nation if it is a foreign ownership. And so I have to double check the numbers on this, but it's really not that bad to nationalize and then reprivatize. So maybe this is going to even allow for strategies. I would have to look at the math at this. I haven't looked at the math at it yet, if it makes sense. But maybe it would make sense to look at places that are owned by manor houses and then nationalize all and then re-put them up for sale. Something like this. And this would be a reason for agrarianism or or interventionism to look better relative to laissez-faire. So a little bit interesting to think about. On the right side of the window, you can see the summed up consequences, the cost, and options to disable payment if your laws allow it. All that's left is to press the button and take control. The bulk nationalization feature should prove to be a powerful tool in everybody's toolbox when it comes to national ownership, and we can't wait to see you use it. Now, generally speaking, you prefer stuff to be privately owned, but maybe there is something to the tune of specifically making stuff that's manor house owned that is like logging camps or mines, nationalizing it and re-putting it up for sale. You could see that some of the effects here that are going to be achieved when you do this. And so off to the right, which of course if you are nationalizing foreign buildings, which I think is generally what you're going to want to be doing, this is going to include huge minus relations hits. But okay. Now we have companies and building ownership, which I think is overall just reading what they say here. It seems to be a nerf to companies, but it remains to be seen because we don't have any sort of concrete numbers. But as we wrote in the past when we talked about companies, we always had a bunch of ideas on how to expand on the feature and integrate it more into the simulation. One of the ideas given was establish companies' actual ownership over the building levels of the country, which they would positively affect rather than applying to all buildings in your country. So now that we have shipped the 1.7 update, which contained building ownership rework that actually allows other buildings to take control of levels, it only felt natural to take this step for companies too. The way we do this is by giving each established company headquarter a building. This building will act much like a financial district or manor house. They're going to have POPs working for them. They have the established portfolio overview, etc. So it's going to be like a unique manor house or a unique financial district. So you still decide which companies to establish in order to specialize your country. Now, here's the interesting thing. Is the ownership going to be capitalist or is it going to be agrarian? Is it who in terms of who is owning the building? Is it going to be capitalist ownership or is it going to be aristocratic ownership in terms of their contribution to the investment pool? And is it going to vary from company to company? If that is the case, then the companies that are not going to be capitalist owned are going to be significantly worse. So you still decide which companies to establish in order to specialize your country, but how that plays out will be different. And I hope they give you more company slots, given the way things work. The establishment of a company HQ may require you give away some of your building levels or provide the necessary funds. Details on this will still need to be evaluated and implemented as we are approaching 1.8, but conditions will likely be dependent on your economic laws. So you need to create an HQ, give up some buildings, this type of thing. When you decide to establish a company, we determine in which state the HQ will spawn based on where in your country the relevant industries are most prominent. So if you establish Frederick Grip, for example, a company that cares about steel, guns, and artillery, it will look through your country to find the state with the highest number of the building levels, and these types will settle there. Now, this is a lever by which you have a little bit of agency in that you can pre-prep hey, I want the HQ of this company to be in a particular state, and so we're going to overbuild the industries there initially in order to get the company to kind of sit there, whether it's Silesia or some other really strong state, making sure that we have a kind of abundance of certain industries in order to get company HQs here. Now, once the company HQ is here, what happens when we slot out the company? Does the company HQ go away? What happens there? And so this is kind of an interesting question to ask in terms of company slots. I'm hoping that there's just way more company slots, but what we have here, once established, companies can invest into new buildings, levels like financial districts or manor houses. I am guessing they are now going to get a proportion of the queue that is proportionate to their investment pool contribution, and considering there is a floor level for capitalists, the fact that the floor level is 25%, this is going to eat into the power of the aristocrats a little bit, I think, but it depends on how big the companies get, I guess, but if there's a floor level for capitalists, then this means that the proportion they will eat into will always be aristocrats if you are non-developed. This is kind of a little bit of a minutia detail, maybe not worth talking about, but it's just something I was thinking about. They make use of the investment pool for this, depending on how much they or the pops in them have contributed to them. There will be more or less investment for the company's new levels. Like the other ownership buildings, company HQ will increase with each level they build or buy. A goal will to have the investment logic is that companies should start investing much more locally, e.g. in their own state. So this is a reason to why I manipulate it to be in a particular state if you really want that industry to be in that state before expanding to your country. But of course, if you have foreign investment rights in place, companies will also make use of that and start building steel mills on the other side of the world. But keep in mind, companies will only ever invest in buildings of their assigned type, so Frederick Krupp will never build a ranch, for example. They will only ever build steel, guns, and I think small arms or ammo is the last one that they can build. Another major change we're doing, of course, is to change the throughput and construction bonuses. And here is why it seems overall like a nerf to companies. Companies will only affect the buildings that actually belong to them, rather than every building, than every single building of the fitting type in your country. So, first of all, this means if you are foreign investing in another country, but in which they have a company, you can no longer gain a bonus by foreign investing in terms of construction speed, such that it'll make sense moving forward. But this will also just be kind of a pretty significant nerf, because I imagine that the company is not going to have an enormous amount of construction generally and early on, and maybe they acquire it because they will be getting throughput bonuses, so they should be acquiring more money relative to other things. But also, you as the player will not be able to have a sense of agency in terms of utilizing that company, because you cannot build for that company. So that means you can't leverage the construction speed bonus. Only that company does, so that means you want to leave it up to the company to do that construction. So if I have a steel company, then what that means is I actually want to try and not build steel to give that company more money, because I'll cause a steel shortage, and that company will take over for building the steel. That way it can make use of the construction bonus by letting it go to the private queue. Or maybe I'm supposed to buy steel and then then privatize it, and the company buys it. But in any case, this gives you much less control over your ability to facilitate construction, because you, as the player, in terms of the national construction queue, can no longer benefit from the construction bonus. And the construction bonus is probably the most significant aspect of this. And so this part is the part that's really just seems like an absolutely enormous nerf. Now, they do kind of come back around and say, to compensate for this, we will increase the bonus that companies are providing. And is that going to be, or is there going to be a bigger construction bonus? Is there going to be a bigger throughput bonus? The numbers are going to have to be like insanely high for that to really feel good, especially if the companies are starting out with like 3 levels of an industry and they have to ramp up over time. You know, they would need like maybe even like 100% throughput bonus or 100% construction bonus. I don't really know what level is going to be required. Or huge bonuses off of you know, their prosperity bonus. But in either case, this seems to be a pretty significant nerf to companies, depending on the numbers, of course. But the fact that you as the player cannot leverage the construction bonus effectively anymore, I think is a pretty substantive one. The same is true for the construction bonus, which is only applied to buildings that are funded by the company. So this is, yeah, it's just overall, I mean, we have to see what sort of compensation that we're receiving here, but this might be a nerf to companies, which isn't necessarily a good or a bad thing. I think I would like to see you get a lot more company slots and have this be kind of the trade-off. You know, if you double the number of company slots, you increase the bonus slightly, and this allows you to, you know, maybe try and force certain companies in certain spots, and then massage your companies into picking up the industry, and they really get built up in those spots. Maybe this is going to be an interesting play pattern, but having more companies also would feel nice. So I think that would be, for me, in my opinion, I think that would be an interesting kind of trade-off. We'll see. I think they could literally double it, because this is a massive, like, you know, nerf. But also, everyone's receiving the same company bonus. You can make them as strong or as weak as you want, I suppose. Okay. In the interface, we will represent company ownership with an icon whenever a level is owned by them. We are also thinking about adding a new color to distinguish their ownership type further. I think that would be fantastic, like purple or something. But we will need to investigate this more. What we will also do to visualize a company is to take it in the third dimension. We will show it on the map with a building that has association with it in the form of billboards. Don't have a strong opinion on this, but you know, they do have to make art assets for something. You know, if you have a bunch of artists who make art assets, you gotta give them something to do, right? If there is at least one level owned by a company, we will place a billboard according to the company's logo on the building. You know, I don't think that this adds more information for the player, but it's a nice thing to look at, because I am never going to be like, is this owned by a company? Or is there company ownership here? And the place at which I click in order to search for this is to just zoom in on the state. I don't think I'm ever doing that in order to acquire the information, but zooming in and looking at all the little billboards can be nice, I guess. We do have a little bit of fun here now and then, zooming in and looking at the sprites and things, but okay. They also light up. For the future, we could see the potential expand on this visualization in other areas, e.g. ships and trucks, but that's out of the scope for at least 1.8. Okay. While the ownership change is a major step forward for companies, it's not the end of the plans for them. We cannot provide you a timeline for future improvements, but we do see potential to expand with them in the future, like political impact, e.g. influencing IGs or other enactment of certain laws, and companies leading characters, among other things. But that is for another time. So this is probably going to be all we see in 1.8 for the improvement of companies. I really would like to see more company slots be kind of the trade-off, rather than just doubling the power of the company. I'd rather have twice as many companies, I think. But man, that construction nerf is going to be really substantive. And also, it will make stacking modifiers no longer a thing. So you can't stack multiple steel companies and get multiple bonuses, because each steel company will have their own individual bonus. But which probably means it so that any type of stacked companies is just like not going to be very good to do. I don't know. The next diary is coming to you in 2 weeks on the 19th. What is this? So you're leaving us without a Happy Thursday after so long without Happy Thursdays? Where Martin will walk you through the changes we made to political movements. With that, I'm leaving you for today and wish you a Happy Thursday. Oh, we got the Happy Thursday at the end. Winky winky. Big nice. We need the Happy Thursday sandwich, though. But with a Happy Thursday, yeah. Big nice on that one. We didn't get it at the beginning, but we got it at the end. They had us in the first act. We thought that they were bad at spelling, but it turns out that, of course, he always was going to wish us a Happy Thursday all along. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one is going to be, it'll be interesting to see what the numbers are. Because overall, I think that this is going to be a nerf to companies. I don't hate it, and from the perspective of RP, I kind of like the companies being localized, and the companies owning the buildings themselves, this type of thing. And so I'm overall happy with these changes. It doesn't matter that it's a nerf to companies to me, because it'll just make companies weaker, but okay. I mean, I think it really will make companies weaker, unless the bonuses, they're gonna have to give some disgusting level of bonuses for the companies, which I don't think they will do, for it not to be a nerf, for you as the player, being able to build 35%. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You know, do the YouTube algorithm thing, and other than that, have a happy Thursday.